Lawyers for John Worboys victims and London Mayor Sadiq Khan vowed to launch court challenges to the release of the black cab rapist after the Justice Secretary refused to do so. No judicial review would mean Worboys is freed within weeks in line with the parole board ruling. Justice Secretary David Gauke was condemned this afternoon for ruling out the government launching a case because legal advice said it would lose. Mr. Gauke insisted he could not justify the government launching a case with no chance of winning. Despite the advice, the Justice Secretary told MPs he fully supports the right of someone else to bring a judicial review. He admitted, "I know this will disappoint the victims in this case and members of this House, given the crimes for which he has been convicted." Worboys is due to be released from prison less than 10 years after he was jailed for drugging and sexually assaulting 12 women and raping one. Police have said they believe he could have attacked up to 102 victims, while lawyers believe there were 105. London Mayor Sadiq Khan condemned the decision and said he would launch a judicial review himself. A group of victims is also crowdfunding for their own case. Mr. Khan said, "I'm seeking a judicial review of the parole board's decision to release John Worboys. It's astonishing and extremely disappointing that the government is accepting his release without challenge. I won't." Lawyer Harriet Wistrich, who represents two of Worboys' victims, said in a statement, "We note the Secretary of State's decision not to proceed with a judicial review of the parole board decision. We can confirm that in the absence of any unexpected and compelling response from the parole board to our pre-action correspondence, we intend to launch judicial review proceedings against the parole board next week." Despite his decision not to contest the parole board decision, Mr. Gauke insisted Worboys will not be released from jail until his license conditions have been set in consultation with victims. There have been calls for the conditions to include a ban Worboys from entering London on the grounds he knows where some of his victims live. Mr. Gauke also announced he was broadening his review of parole board decisions in light of the case. He said, "I have taken a close personal interest in this case since assuming office as Secretary of State for Justice. I believe it is important that all the victims have clarity as soon as possible, which is why I am before the House today. I can reassure the House and the public that Worboys will not be released until his license conditions have been finalized." Labour Shadow Justice Minister Imran Hussain warned many will be disappointed by the decision, which makes the need for changes in the parole board even more pressing. Earlier this week, a coalition of Worboys victims set up a crowdfunding page to raise funds to cover the legal fees for their own judicial review. Mr. Gauke refused to comment on what the legal advice he received had said in detail, insisting he did not want to prejudice any future case. Lawyers representing Worboys victims have already written a letter to the parole board calling for it to reconsider his case. Mr. Khan said, "Londoners' safety is my #1 priority, and I am deeply worried and unhappy that the parole board planned to release John Worboys onto the streets of our city, where many of his victims live and work." If the parole board are standing by their decision to release John Worboys, I want their decision properly scrutinized by the courts. It would simply be unacceptable for this man to be released before then. That's why I have written to the parole board, demanding that John Worboys must not be released until proper independent judicial scrutiny of the decision has taken place. The public wants to be reassured the decision by the parole board was taken properly and that his victims and other Londoners will receive the protection they deserve. It is crucial that the decision to release this manipulative, calculating and dangerous man can be considered by the courts as soon as possible. It is also imperative that the failure to prosecute more cases against Worboys is re-examined. Worboys owns a £300,000 flat in Poole, Dorset, where he previously starred in amateur porn films with a friend. It's disgusting that after conning the justice system into letting him walk, he is able to cling on to so many of his assets, a source told the Sunday Mirror. People will believe Worboys is going to be released and will live in a hovel. His flat is in Poole, just miles away from neighbouring Bournemouth, where he is feared to have targeted at least 4 women while working as a cabbie. Worboys is believed to have owned a number of properties across London and had more than £80,000 in 2 bank accounts when he was jailed. The 60-year-old was assessed to no longer be a danger to the public by a panel of 3 people who approved his release on license with 14 secret restrictions. However, his victims who were attacked between 2002 and 2008 only found out through the media. It comes as a letter by Parole Board Chief Executive Martin Jones conceded that victims and the public would find it impossible to understand the decision to release Worboys without a full explanation. Fresh questions have been raised about the decision amid reports that he was previously prevented from moving to an open prison. Tipsy after several drinks, the 19-year-old accepted his lift back to East Sheen in West London, 6 miles away. On the journey, Worboys, who appeared friendly and very genuine, persuaded her to drink a glass of vodka. The next memory Miss Simmons had was waking up at 3 p.m. the next day after being violently sick and passing out in the bath at home. She thought her drink must have been spiked, but had so little recollection of what happened that she did not report the incident until February 2008, when police made a public appeal for victims. Miss Simmons, who waived her right to anonymity, said previously, "I'll never be able to get in a black cab again. It is terrifying to think what might have happened to me. I think I would instinctively know if I had been sexually assaulted, and I'm 99% sure I was not, but that 1% of doubt is always there." Worboys offered her champagne, but she poured it on the floor. She downed the vodka only after he promised to pay her £50 and give her the lift home for free. She added, "He puts you in a position where you feel indebted to him. He's a professional conman."